Hi, I'm Andre, and this is the second part of using Cinema 4D to create perspective guides. Okay, I've opened up this scene here that I created for the first video, and in the last video there are a couple things that I forgot to mention and do. I hope that you guys forgive me because I'm new to this recording thing. Also, if there is something I forgot to mention or something you would like to know, you can post it in the comments below and I'll try to answer it as soon as possible. Okay, the first thing I forgot to mention in the last episode, right, was when I duplicated this fence here, right? Let me just drag it out. If you hold down the control button while you transforming any object, right, you'll see that the icon has these two little squares. That means it will create a copy of that object, right? So you see I have created another fence here and it's in the object manager. Okay, let's get back. The next thing that I forgot to do was I forgot to rename our tree. So I will just unfold the tree hierarchy with the cylinder and the cube. I will select both of the objects and I will rename it to tree. This is the way that I do my naming conventions. If something belongs to something else, I call that next thing the same thing, you know, just to avoid any confusion. Okay, now this stage we'll be covering coloring objects, camera creation, and a little rendering and lighting once we have the time. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is down here. This is your material manager. You can create materials here, delete materials from here. The easiest way to create a material in the material manager is just to double click, right? Now this material that I'm creating here, I'm going to use this material as the road. So if I double click on the name of the material here, I will get an option to rename it and I will call it road. Okay, I'll double click the material itself again, and here comes here will come up the material dialog box. The first thing I'm going to do is turn off reflectance because we don't need that, and let me see, I'm going to give it a light gray color as the road. Right. So I'll just close this off. Right. There are many ways you can apply materials. Two of the ways are by dragging the material onto the object itself. Right. Let me undo, Control Z, and dragging it to the object manager. Right. So if I go here to the road and I let go, it also applies the material that way. You can do any one you want. Alright, so I'm going to create another material here by double clicking. Double click to rename it, and I think I'm going to create a material for the yard. Right, so I'll call this, just to avoid any confusion, I'll just call this lot of land. Okay, so I'll just drag and apply this material. You see it changes color, And now I can double click. I'm doing these things differently to show you that it can be done in certain orders or however you want to do it. I'll take off the reflectance at first, right? And I'll change the color to a light green. Okay, right, so it resembles something like grass, or at least it gives us the idea that this is some kind of outdoor grass scene or some kind of thing like that. So on to our tree. Okay, so I will click on the X here. No, that's a robot, sorry. I'll click on the X here to unfold the tree, and I'll double click here to create a material. What I have to do, I have to create two materials. I have to create one for the tree with the leaves, and another material for the actual tree trunk. So I'll just create those two materials in advance, and I'll rename this one leaves, and I'll rename this one trunk. Okay, so I think we should give the trunk some kind of a brownish, light brownish color. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is create to create the color for the leaves. So I'll create a light green. Okay, right. So what I think we should do is I think we should rename these, since we are applying materials to each one specifically. So I'll call this trunk, and I'll call this leaves. Alright. Okay, so let me make the leaves a little darker, so just to differentiate it from the grass, right? So but we can make this any color we want. I mean, let's go crazy and make some kind of wild wacky color, just to show that we can use anything. Right, so I have some purple leaves. Alright, so I'll drag this on the leaves, and I'll drag the trunk material on the tree. Alright, okay, so moving on, we need to create a material for the sidewalk, but I think the best idea is to just use the road material on the sidewalk. Okay, so now we just have to create a material for the house, and we'll rename this to HOUSE house. Alright, I will double click on the material, and we will give this a color like blue. Yeah, let's just give it a blue color, nothing too fancy. Okay, close out of that. Okay, I'll take the house material, drag it onto the house, and there we are. Right, we have all our materials for all of our objects. I'll close back up this. Alright, I'll orbit around by hitting the Alt key. Right, okay, I've forgotten to make a material for the fence. So what I will do is I wouldn't bother to make a material for the fence, right? Because when I render this out, right, everything will be a different color except the fence. The fence will be white. So I will go on to rendering and lighting. Okay. The first thing we're going to do here in regards to our lighting is to click on this light button here. When I click on this light button here, I create a light. Make sure you are in Gouraud shading with lines to see the effect of the light in the scene, which is a feature I like a lot about Cinema 4D. Right, so I'm going to drag this light up above here, right, as if it's some kind of sunlight in the sky, right? That's light in the house and the street. Okay, I will click on my icon here to change my viewports, right? I will go to my top viewport, right, and this green icon here will move the light only in the Z and X coordinates, as you can see in the perspective view. So I'll just drag it to what I think would be the center of the scene, right? So I think I should put it more over where the yard is, because that's where all the action is happening. Okay, I'll click this button here in my perspective view to bring back my perspective viewport, right? And I'll do a test render in the viewport by clicking this button here called render view. Alright, so this is how our scene looks. So now I think I'll go back into the light, right, and create some shadows, because this is the only thing I use the light for, to create shadows, so I can render out a JPEG with the shadows and use that as a reference of where to draw, where to place my dark and light areas to make my scene look more realistic. So in the shadow options of the light, right, we will change the shadow to ray traced hard. This should give us some solid hard shadows instead of soft shadows. So I'll do another quick render view, and we can see a little shadow of the guy jumping over the fence here, and we can see some shadow coming from the fence itself. You know, so it's good. It's it looks like it's a kind of midday scene. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add another light to the scene. I'm going to go into the light options and add an infinite light, right? This will light up our entire scene depending on the direction that this light is facing. So if this Z axis here is facing towards the scene, it will light the entire scene. So in order to do that, I'll go to my rotate tool and I'll hold shift. It's not really necessary because we can also eyeball this, right, and rotate this light pointing towards this direction, right? I will also click on the light, right, and go into the general tab and take down the intensity of the light, right? And I won't use any shadow on this light because we already have shadow from the other light. Okay, so we can also rename our lights to avoid any confusion. I'll call this overhead, right, and I'll call this one fill, right? Okay, alright, take down the intensity, right? So we can go up here to our render view, right, and click it, and now we can see how our scene looks. Okay, so what I think I'll do is I'll take the fill light down some more, right, to create some more darker areas, and I'll try that again. Right, so okay, right, all right. Now we get to the meat of this project, where I will be showing you exactly what I mean by creating perspective guides. Okay, this button here, right, is the button to enter our render settings. This will determine how our JPEG will come out when we have rendered it out. So if I go into here, I will see an option for me to save the JPEG. I will go into the save option here. I will change it to JPEG. Right, in the file option, I will navigate to my folders, right, to where it says final JPEG renders, right, and I will call this one I'll call it escape, right, but I'll call it escape grid, because the first thing we'll be rendering out is the grid and not the shadows. So I'll save, right. All right, we don't need to bother with this, we don't need to bother with any of these, right. The only thing that we are creating now, we will right click, right, and go down to this option here and create a cell renderer. Okay, so in the cell renderer's basic properties, right, we have properties for color, outline, edges, and illumination, right. In order to just render out a wireframe grid, we are just going to use the edges option, right, and the color option, because we want to get the colors that we created here in the scene, right. So yeah, let me take off the illumination. We don't need the illumination because the illumination is the one that we are going to be using for the shadows. Right, so if we close off this and we do a test render, don't click this middle button, by the way, because this will render out the actual file that will be saved in our folder. So we are going to do a test render in the render view, and when we click this, you can see what I'm talking about here, right. So if I zoom in and orbit, right, and move down. Okay, one more thing. If you will notice some black, some shaded bars at the side of the scene, that's showing you the area that we will be rendering out. But what we want to do, we want to render out a larger area than this. So I'll go back into the render settings, go into my save options, my output options, right, and change this from, actually there are some presets that we could use here. Let me see if I see one that we can use. 12. I think I'll just use my own. I think I'll just use 1280 by 720 in height. Okay, right, and that's all we need to be messing with here right now. If there's anything else, I will cover it. Go back to save. Now, as soon as I did that, you will notice that the black bars dimensions changed, right. That's because we are using more of the screen because of our bigger size. Okay, so if I do a test render here, right, you'll see exactly what I was talking about using this process for setting up your perspective guides, right? Because I mean, setting up perspective guides is a very difficult process to me, you know, especially doing it the Photoshop way. Alright, so if I do another render, and the advantage with this is that we have already visualized how we want our drawings to come out. Alright, so if I decide I want to put someone over in the corner here by the house, you know, looking at him jumping over, I can do that. right? And everything will be uniformed with regards to size and dimensions and just general perspective, right? So this is a very powerful tool that we can use to better our drawings. Okay, so we can also add in a lot of different other stuff to this, like we can add in like a cylinder and use that as some kind of a fire hydrant, right? Because what I'm trying to show you is that this process, it doesn't demand you being too over accurate, you know. You can draw some very basic shapes, right? And when you go into your drawing or Photoshop program, right, we can get a lot of realistic proportions, right, from using these methods. Okay, right? So I think we'll stop there for today. Let me just delete this because we won't be drawing a fire hydrant, and I'll continue in the next lesson with importing it into Photoshop and all that stuff, right? And showing you my way and how I would go about drawing out some of this stuff in Photoshop, right? But what I will try to do, I will try to get a view where I wouldn't get too much of the distance over here, right? Almost like this, you know, because we can also extend our grid out further into the distance if we want to capture more of that. But I think we'll just concentrate on this for now. Okay, all right, so I'll see you in the next lesson, and take care.